Oh, hi there. Welcome to Shogi in the West, an English language podcast for active shogi players and shogi learners around the world. In this podcast, we focus on the topics and the people that matter to those of us outside Japan trying to find our way in the game. This week's guest is Trevor. Trevor is relatively new to shogi, but is no stranger to competitive games. As a regular member of the Shogi Dad stream community, Trevor has expressed thoughts on internationalized shogi piece sets and growth of the game. I hope we can get into lots of that in this episode. Trevor, welcome to the podcast, and have you played any shogi today?
Hey there, Shogi Dad. Absolutely. I have played two games on Shogi Wars this morning, one 10-minute and one 3-minute game. The 10-minute game actually moved me from 11Q to 10Q. So I got a nice little
Awesome.
pop-up telling me to spend $40 on a
Yes.
certificate. And then I did some Shogi problems on Lee Shogi right before this call.
Oh, cool, cool. I actually didn't know that that you've usually shogi for that very much. I don't think you've mentioned that. Is that something you've like recently started doing, or is that a regular thing?
Yeah, I used to do it a lot more when I started. As you mentioned, I'm fairly new to shogi, and I had previously learned about shogi. I guess I'll go a little bit over my background here. I was a fairly high rated chess player when I was younger, probably 1700, 1800 in high school, and then stopped playing and picked it back up and took a lesson with a national master here in northern Indiana named Jim Dean. Yes, like the sausage.
Hmm.
Um, but he and I were talking, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I have friends that play all these competitive games, like Chinese chess or Go or Wakey Baduk." And then he said one of them became fairly interested in shogi, and at that point, I had only heard of shogi through a few anime. March Comes Like a Lion and one of the characters in Hikaru no Go. I had never played it before, so I looked up just shogi websites, and Lee Shogi was the first one to pop up. Um, at that time, I did not create an account, but I went through kind of like the basics, like learn shogi tree that they have on Lee Shogi. And then about 6 months ago, I was playing Go with some friends, and I realized I'm just so bad at that game
Hmm.
that I want to find a game that's a little more niche that I can really put my time and effort into that can show me some growth. And Shogi gave me that almost immediately. Whereas, I made a Lee Shogi account. I was playing in those, playing correspondence games with people, playing daily tournaments and weekly tournaments and stuff like that, and found out, hey, this is not too different than like Bug House chess, which I also really enjoy playing with my friends. So
Hmm.
um, the puzzles used to be a daily thing for me, or at least like a semi regular thing for me. They've slowed down for a bit now that I've been on Shogi Wars, but I still do them occasionally when I find the time.
Is Shogi Wars a part of your daily routine yet?
Yes, I would say that I usually play 2 to 3 games on a day on Shogi Wars. To quote the young people of my generation, I ain't about that life when it comes to paying for subscriptions to
Yeah.
play a game. So I play my 3 games a day, my three free games, and I have been doing fairly well. Today I beat a 5Q in my
Hmm.
10-minute game, and I beat a 9Q in my 3-minute game. The 3-minute game was actually the first 3-minute game I had played on the site, and I won it pretty handily. I'm always very nervous about their short time controls. You and I have talked about that before with chess. I was playing 30-minute games, 45-minute games, 20-minute games minimum. And so coming over to Shogi where the majority of players are playing either 10-minute, 3-minute, or 10-second games is was a little bit of a change for me, but I think I'm adapting to it pretty well.
Yeah. Are you playing on mobile with your tapping or?
Nope. I'm playing on browser, which causes some issues. I in that 10-minute game today, I was down to maybe 4 or 3 minutes, and I saw a sequence in which On the eighth file, I was sacrificing my rook multiple times in order to bring the king closer to the edge,
Okay.
and so I had to go like eighth file fourth row, eighth file third row, and then eighth file second row. And when I was supposed to go eighth file second row, I went eighth file first row directly in front of the lands. And so that does tend to happen to me on browser, not if not daily, like
Mm.
every 2 or 3 days. So it's definitely something I'm getting used to. Um, I do have like the drag and click option turned on browser, and that's the
Oh,
way I prefer to move my chess pieces when I play. I
yeah.
don't like clicking and moving. So um, definitely like a an occurrence that happens, but I really do enjoy playing on Shogi Wars. It's taught me a lot, even in terms of like openings, which is something that I had not really taken a gander into before I started playing Shogi Wars. But whenever you see those little avatars pop up with the opening that you're playing, I'm like, oh, well, I'm playing this opening. I've never really looked into it. Maybe I'll look into it now.
Yeah, I think that's an underappreciated feature of the site that it pops up and it pops up the badge. You sort of know you know that you're doing. I don't want to say right, but you're doing something right. It's like if there's a badge for it, it can't be too bad, and um, and yet it's not a huge advantage by any means of like, oh, now you have some critical information that you
Yeah.
wouldn't have over the board. It's just sort of a nice thing. And like you say, you get this badge. This has happened to me a few times. You get this badge, and it's like, oh, what was that? And then it's a launching point to learn a bit more about it. That's awesome. So just going back to the misclick, um, is that something that is exclusive for you on Shogi Wars, or like do you do that in chess?
I don't often do it. I play on chess.com when I do play chess. I don't often do it when I'm playing chess. I have before, but I think with chess, I'm playing those really long time controls. So I have in my mind more time to be careful and make sure, the majority of my misclicks when I'm playing shogi come from either the bishop or the rook. When I'm playing those really long moves and I'm dragging my mouse across and I either drag it to like not long enough or too long.
Yeah,
And in chess, we have pieces that are that long, but at the same time, or that move that distance, but at the same time, like for me, I think I'm just used to the way a chessboard is. The 8x8 is still a more, I won't say comforting, but like recognizable sight for me at this point. So
yeah,
sometimes I will notice that I will move my shogi pieces like, oh, well, it's 8x8, so like maybe I either move it one too long or one too little. I think that's a bigger issue that I'm still just not used to a 9x9 board.
yeah, yeah. I was playing full disclosure. I played some chess last night, and so I played online against my son who is away at school. So these are the first chess games I've played in months since the last time I played him over the board. And we played on chess.com and then reviewed on Lichess. So I got the sense of both of them. Not that I'm not familiar with them, but I re-familiarized myself with them. And while I was moving the pieces, this discussion is kind of is pertinent to what I've been thinking about because I thought, boy, these pieces move so nicely. I don't struggle at all moving these pieces. I can drag. You can click, which I wouldn't do. Like if the pieces moved, that Shogi Wars does have the ability to drag pieces, but you're not really like the piece isn't just sort of free
Yeah.
flowing that you move. So it's tough. It's tough. Is that something that Does that put you off? I'm curious. Is someone coming in like does seeing the state of our software does it put you off?
Speaking of software, this is a really great point. We'll talk about Shogi Wars, which I said I'm a 10Q in. 81 Dojo is the other software that I have played on semi-regularly. And by semi-regularly, I mean I've played like 4 games on
Yeah,
it. Right now, I think I'm a provisional rank 7Q on 81 Dojo, but I have not played there in months because it's not necessarily the software of like how the pieces move or the UI or anything like that. It's how hard it is to find a game in the Shogi community.
yeah,
On Shogi Wars, and that's one of the reasons I'm playing it every day. I can just press start and I'll either get matched up with a person or I'll get matched up with one of the 3 bots that they have. And, I think I've played 2 of them at this point, but if I'm playing oftentimes at like 4 or 5 p.m. right after work, there are not a lot of people in Japan playing on Shogi Wars, so I'm either playing like some really new Westerner that just started, or I'm playing one of the bots. But at least I can find a game.
yeah,
Um, 81 Dojo, I have a really hard time finding a game. The whole like invite somebody to a match and they have to accept it is really, really hard, especially when you have a flag that's not from Japan or China.
yeah.
Um, and so with my national flag, which is the Israeli flag, I don't know if that plays into it being an Israeli flag. I wouldn't think it would. Honestly, I don't think people have that much of an issue with it over in East Asia. I think the bigger issue is that it's just not a Japanese flag. So whenever I challenge people, they might think, "Oh, well, this guy's either like totally new to the game or in some instances, and this is not an incorrect statement, he's underrated because he just doesn't have that many games played. And I see that on Shogi Wars right now, where I'm playing 6 Qs and I'm playing 5 Qs, and I think the highest rank I've beaten on Shogi Wars is a 3Q.
Mm,
And they're seeing me as like a 13Q or a 12Q or an 11Q, and they're probably underestimating me. I think that's what happened in my 3 minute game today, where I was playing an 8Q, and since it was my first game, I was a 30Q.
yeah.
And he was just blitzing out moves left and right, and he hung his rook and his bishop in 3 moves.
Mm,
And it took me a while to checkmate, honestly, because my brain does not work that fast. But I think the software itself does not drive me away as much as like the lack of places and the lack of resources.
yeah. Yeah, you made a bunch of interesting points there. I think for the flag thing, that's something that, not 81 Dojo, but there's another site out there with the similar sort of matchmaking, lack of matchmaking, I should say, Shogi Club 24, where in the past, there's a text field for your locale, or where you're from, or your city, or whatever it is. And I used to have I probably had, I don't know if it's just, if I just put USA, or if I put California, USA, something like that. And I was having a hard time getting games. So I took that locale off. So, kind of essentially masking where I'm from. And from that point, I got more games. And it's sort of unfortunate that you have to do that. There's also the sort of the metagame on 81 Dojo, maybe, that you're experiencing, which I've heard from other people. I have no way to verify this, but well, not that I have no way, but at the below the 10Q level, apparently, it's a haven of sandbaggers.
Yeah.
So a lot of people will say, okay, well, set your preliminary rating to 9Q, even if you're worse, just so that people won't think you're a sandbagger, or you don't get sandbaggers. It's just kind of unfortunate. It's really, what did you say? Ain't no one got time for that. Like, no one, especially a new player excited
Yeah.
about the game, comes in, and hopefully we may get some of those. Well, we can talk about the Netflix show or whatever, later. But if this Netflix show comes out, and let's say we do get some people coming into the shogi world, how are they going to, who are they going to play? What are they going to play? Assuming they could even get a registration into 81 Dojo, get
Yeah.
their email registered. So, I'm glad you made it through, because it does seem like that welcome point, or what is it called? Not the initiation. I don't know. The welcome party to the
The
game.
introduction. Yeah.
Introduction. It's rough.
It is, and it's so hard, you and I have had talks about my introduction specifically to shogi too, which
Yeah.
was not pleasant. I'll be 100% honest, because it's not just the people who have been playing shogi for years in Japan or China, or you know um, like East Asia and Vietnam. I know there's a few
Yeah.
people in your stream that are from there. The people in the Western world are also, I don't want to say gatekeepy, because I don't think that's the right word, but they're very hesitant to embrace differences. Like, for instance, you brought up at the beginning of the stream international pieces. I love international pieces, very specific international pieces, let me say. I actually really, really enjoy the new pieces that Shogi Wars introduced with the dots on them. Um, those are probably my favorite pieces that I've played with, because they still have the kanji, and yet I think they're not so jarring to look at that they couldn't be introduced in other ways to other people. I think those would be great beginner shogi pieces, not just in like the Western world, but in Japan. 'Cause I know a lot of them learn like with the giraffe as the lance and the elephant, or whatever the kids shogi board looks like. I think those dots could be a really, really good introduction to like just learning shogi at any level. I also really like the check pieces, which I've told you about. I
Mhm.
have them on Lee Shogi, but I also keep the kanji on. They're not just full check pieces, so that I can hopefully eventually get to a point where I don't need them. But when I was asking about those pieces the first time, I like less than 2 or 3 months after I started learning shogi, I was asking about international pieces, and a very I won't name names as requested by you. A very well respected member of the shogi community told me that if I wanted to play with international pieces, I should just try Tiddlywinks instead. And so I think not hearing what the community has to say, and I know that you and I disagree on the use of international pieces in general, but I think there are better ways to go about that than to just completely try and drive people away.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot there to unpack. So in terms of disagreeing about the international pieces, I think so. I have unsubstantiated. No, I have thoughts that are not completely concrete, and I feel like I'm changing all the time on this. I think in general, my feeling is that the pieces inevitably, or in the end, the pieces will not be the thing that hold back the game from growing in the West or getting bigger. Like it's a factor, but I think it's not the factor. I think that's it. But in terms of liking the pieces, I love it. And we had the pieces that you're talking about on Shogi Wars. For anyone who doesn't know, Shogi Wars in the past month or so introduced a new piece set, and we jokingly on the stream talked. I guess jokingly talked that like the people were watching the stream, because we had this discussion in on the stream, and then like a few weeks later, here comes this new piece set, and it's got dots and arrows on the pieces. It's somewhat like Shogi.cz, except it's on the edges of the piece. And someone at the Silicon Valley Shogi Club, our JSA liaison for the club, he is working on building a piece set very similar, if not exactly similar, building and marketing and trying to get the production of a piece set like that. And I played with this piece set last month. Let's just say last month, and it was fantastic. Like it was great. I like Shogi.cz, and this Shogi.cz came up last week. Its utility came up last week in the podcast with Edward, But I think these arrows on the edges, they're even better. And I'm excited about it because it immediately lets people at events see how the pieces move. It gets that. I love it. I would love to see more of it. Myself, I do prefer playing with the kanji pieces just because I think they're generally of better quality and they look, I think, a little nicer. And regardless of what I like, I think the reality is that is the game is an established 400 or 500 year old game. I think it's going to be there, so you have to know the kanji at some point to play higher level players. So there's that, and we could talk about that. But in terms of the gatekeeping, I think what did you say? That you said like I don't know if I want to call it gatekeepy. I think you said, well, I don't know if you don't want to, but I do want to call it that. I have absolutely, and I feel this to this day. There are people in just like any. If you're as old as I, you get to my point, you've been in enough sort of groups. You'll see that in any group, especially a niche group, people who have been around for years and established themselves as sort of the elder members of the niche, they will gatekeep. Gatekeepers will gatekeep, and there is absolutely gatekeeping in the shogi community. It's no different than any others, and we have more than a handful of them, like even in the Discord. But knowing that, I think it's a lot of things are not meant with bad intent. So I just try to just be like, okay, this person had a position here. I'm maybe infringing on their stuff. I'll just take it. I understand, and I'll just try to not let it bother me. I don't know. It's tough. But that is a thing that doesn't come up much in discussion. So I'm glad you brought it up, and it's something that now that I am 3+ years like at the local club, at the local club, I think about this like, all right, how do I not poo-poo the new people's opinions, or we have 3 new members of this club now. It's like, how do we just sort of work together to sort of keep this club going, and it's tough, but hopefully it's not too rough. Anyway, boy, there's so much to talk about on this. So what are you, in terms of the piece sets? I'm sorry for talking so much here. In terms of the piece sets, do you have any physical piece sets that you play with? Like that group of people that you played Go with and chess. Like, are you playing with them?
That's a great question. I was going to bring that up. I have met 1.5 people that play shogi. Um, Not that necessarily I met like a left or right half of a person, but
Yeah.
I didn't actually interact with the person who brought the shogi set to the chess club. I'm part of a local chess club, and then I'm part of a.
You
I'll
still
say,
are.
yeah, 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 yeah. I am. I'll probably go there in like 2 hours after we get off this call. And then I'm part of a local Go club, and Go is more of a means to an end. I like the game. Don't get me wrong. I'm very bad at it.
Yeah.
Like when people are like, "Oh, I'm bad," I mean, like I've played I think 45 or 50 games at this point, and I've won two,
Mm.
and only one of them was at even odds.
Well, you're
So
supposed to
like
lose your first 50 games as fast as you can.
yeah, yeah. I'm just not good at the game. But I have a lot of friends that play Go, and where I am in northern Indiana, there's a we had I think 7 people come out for a Go club, which was wild to me.
Wow.
Um, and normally nowadays it's like 3 or 4, but that still means we can have 2 games going. And then this week, I actually went down to Indianapolis, which is like a 3 hour drive for me, 2.5 or 3 hour drive.
Okay.
And I met with a Go Club there, and I played 2 games, and I lost both of them pretty handily. Um, but while I was there, I was talking about shogi, and they mentioned, "Hey, one of our members is really into mahjong and Chinese chess." I always forget
Shang-Chi,
the
yeah.
yes, yes, and I think he's started playing shogi too. And so I sent him a message on their Discord channel, and he's like, "Yeah, I just made a League Shogi account today." So we're playing a correspondence game on League Shogi right now. So there are opportunities outside. Like, there's no shogi club in pardon my French. Like, I don't know if I can cuss on here. I'll bumfrick Indiana.
Yeah.
There's no shogi club out here. There's no shogi players out here. But the fact that I found one 2.5 hours away, and I guess there technically is one in my city because we talked about this on your stream. Somebody brought like a beginner shogi set to one of the chess meetups where they had the pieces and they had the 9x9 square with the
Yes.
arrows that which denote the movement of the piece. So there's at least one player here in town that either knows how to play shogi or is learning how to play shogi with that piece set. I do have a physical piece set to answer your question. It is one I got gifted for free off of Facebook Marketplace in Madison, Wisconsin when I was living up there. They gave me a wooden, like, beginner shogi set, which folds out into a board,
Yeah.
and it has the 1,000 yen sticker on it.
Yeah.
So that's that. And it came with a copy of Call the Wild in Japanese. So
Really?
yeah, it was a very interesting Facebook Market pickup.
I read that book when I was in Alaska last year.
Yeah,
Not in Japanese.
yeah, it's I haven't read it in Japanese, but it's actually really cool because you open it and it's just I had never had a fully Japanese book, and it was just lines of text
Yeah.
with Japanese going from top to bottom. It was really cool to look at, and I'm like, I am not advanced enough to read this book, but
Yeah.
it's nice to have for my collection. So I do have a physical set. I get it out every once in a while. I just don't very like the pieces very much, and it's not like the
They're not
kanji.
internet. They're fully kanji
They're
pieces.
fully kanji pieces. That's not why I don't like them. They're just really poorly made. The sizes are a little different. You know,
Yeah.
it's 1,000 yen set
Yeah.
from Japan, and the sizes are a little off. The wood is pretty scratchy whenever you pick it up. So I think rather than like going and buying, a set of Shogi CZ pieces, which I have thought about, but those pieces look to be of the same quality in terms of like the wood.
Yeah.
I would just go and rather like go to a wood cutting studio here in town and or laser cutting studio and make my own.
That's interesting. So, boy, yeah, as someone, and I sometimes feel like I'm just completely nerding out by myself because I don't know if many people think this, but like the tactile feel of the pieces matter a lot to me, and I just don't, as I've gone at length on the stream too much at too much length. I don't enjoy playing with pieces that I don't like. To the point where I'd rather just not even play, and it's terrible, but it's the way I am. Some cheap wood pieces I just don't like playing with,
Yeah.
and the shogi.cz are just on that edge, just slightly past that as far as like my tastes are concerned. They're just slightly past that edge to where I'll play with them. I don't love them, and I'll play if people like them, but like I don't like love playing with those. But you talk about you would just make your own. There is someone at our club, the club leader of one of the clubs I go to, and he made a beautiful set of essentially they look the same type as shogi.cz. These are beautiful pieces, and I am hoping that he or someone like him will make an Etsy shop and sell these because there are people like you out there who want these pieces. There are people like me who will buy these pieces because I'd rather play with them Um, if we've got beginners, I'd rather play and show them a nice set of these pieces. So hopefully, hopefully we'll get there. This piece set that I was talking about that I played with a month ago with the Shogi Wars style, arrows on the edges. That was something that I sort of tried to impress on him, is that at least make these, like, I know like you want to sell them for a relatively low price, but at least make them nice pieces so that everyone can have sort of fun playing with it. So fascinating. It's always great to hear someone else anyway, expand my echo chamber a bit. Uh, yeah. So
Yeah, well,
you
I
can do that stuff? Maybe that'll
uh,
be
I
you.
I have done like CAD design stuff before, or Blender. So I have not made a lot of like physical renderings of the things that I design, but I when I was in college, I would do some stuff with my hands. I was a music major for quite some time when I started at my university, conservatory style saxophonist,
Mm,
and so a lot of my friends were fine arts majors, a lot of theater majors, a lot of vocal majors, and then a lot of just art majors. So I had a fair amount of experience like with ceramics or other art forms. I'm not a great drawer. I'm not a great, painter or anything like that, but I really enjoyed making things with my hands. And so I don't think it would be too far of a stretch for me to do something like that in the future. I will say, to kind of transition to another topic that I kind of talked about earlier, the kanji pieces that I use, when I do use them, I'm playing hopefully a long game on
yeah.
like Lee Shogi or something like that. I'll play against like the AI for 30 minutes, or if they have, I think we played in a 30-minute tournament a few
Yep.
few weeks
And you
ago.
won. You won on time. But even though it was, I think my last blunder or whatever, it was even, or I don't remember,
Yeah,
slightly
you
so.
were slightly ahead, but that
Yeah, you
is
played a
that
great
is that
game.
that is a chess thing that I have picked up, where like if I don't let myself get low on time in the first place, because if I let myself get low on time, I'll crack, and
Yeah.
I'm aware of that, which is why I really like those 30-minute to an hour long games. And I'm not at a as you said, a Carlos Magnuson level, Magnus Carlsen, but I'm not at his level where I have to be putting 8 to 10 minutes into every move, because if I mess up, I mess up, and it's against somebody who is also likely going to mess up.
Mm,
One benefit to that is I have started being able to understand the pieces a little more, as even without the training wheels, so to speak. So we talked about like how I get those badges on Shogi Wars. I have been playing the same opening basically every opportunity I get, which is Bishop Exchange one turn loss,
oh
because
wow.
I have found that people really don't like having to mess up their castle
Yeah.
at my level. And so even though I give up Sente, I give up the position of playing first, it puts them in a position where they now have to modify their move sets. And so that's something it's kind of like a gambit in chess. It's
Mm,
something that I really enjoyed doing. I love the Smith Morra gambit, love Queen's gambit, although I usually decline it. Um, but after I started doing that, I started looking for resources on openings, and there are not a lot. You
yeah.
and I have had this discussion. There are a lot of like reinforcement learning chess sites where you play the same openings and respond to what your opponent does. Shogi's not necessarily like that in general. You build your castle, your opponent builds their castle, and oftentimes you won't have that interaction, especially at high levels, unless they're doing something like, like double wing attack or a side pawn, or something along the lines of like a really aggressive opening where you have to respond really
Mm,
quickly. So Bishop Exchange, even though I lose that even though I lose that momentum, causes my opponent to have to do something different. Um, when I started like thinking, well, where can I go to learn openings? You know, Killer Ducky has a great Lee Shogi study. Not really my preferred way of learning openings, where like I am seeing not necessarily a branch, but just the castle being built in general. And I finally took the bullet this week and went to Hidechi's. Uh,
Mm.
I think that's how you say it,
Yeah, I
Hidechi,
think
right?
so.
Yeah, yeah, Hidechi's YouTube channel, which I before this week assumed was completely in Japanese with English
Oh,
subtitles.
okay.
And so I watched his quick Ishida attack #1 opening, and I'm like, this is really well informed. This has a lot of different layers to it, and I wish that I could implement this somewhere in a website where I put in these moves and there are like these branches. And if the opponent plays here, I play here. And if the
Yeah.
opponent plays here, I play here, which is something that I do for my chess openings. You know, chess book, not to shout out any website or anything like
No,
that.
please do.
Chessbook is my favorite chess website, which is just a like reinforcement learning chess opening website
Yeah.
where you input a move and it tells you 5 to 8 popular moves that your opponent will play. And then it tells you 5 to 8 popular moves that you would play. And then after you implement that line, you just press practice and you move and the computer moves and you have to remember which of the moves to make based on your opponent's move. And I wish there was something like that for Shogi. I know somebody mentioned that they were building an opening website.
Yeah.
I have not seen how that has progressed, but it would be really cool to see that implemented for Shogi specifically,
Yeah.
because that's
So
how I enjoy learning openings.
I think people sort of like you, I'm air quoting like you, not like you as someone who's played chess,
Yeah.
is fluent in the chess software world. When they come to shogi, they're going to expect some level of software. They may not expect the chess level of software, but they expect some level. And the fact that we don't have that, I think we talk a lot of times. People outside of Japan, they talk about what do we need to do for shogi, to make it more popular. I think this is one of the things. This is one of those next step things beyond just the beginning. Beyond here are the openings, here are the castles. It's something like this. The software. People will say openings don't matter, but it doesn't. Like, just because you want to learn what happens at the beginning, or just because you want to get a feel for what happens at the beginning, that doesn't mean that you're valuing openings more than anything. I think that's a bit of the gatekeeping that goes on in the shogi world as well, particularly with some stronger players, where it's like, oh, you don't need openings. Well,
I want to learn them.
I want to. I
Yep.
want to. Like, I'm not going to be I'm not going to be compete with Fuji Sota. I'm never going to. There are people play these games for different reasons. People play chess. Some people that play chess, they don't even play games. They just like to do
Yep.
puzzles. They like to watch. They like to do other things. A lot of different kinds of people. And boy, I don't want to rant, but the software. So the software you mentioned is there is a YouTuber, I Dream of Shogi, player out of New York, who I've met. Great guy, great player. He built this Shogi Craft, and shogicraft.com. I will link to it. It's relatively light, but it's essentially that kind of thing. Not chess. So I have barely looked at Chessbook. I've been using Chessable since the moment I found it years ago. I love Chessable. And as I've said before, I'm closing in on an 1,800-day streak of having done at least one Chessable problem, interaction. Even though I don't play chess, Shogi doesn't have that. But he worked on this. He's got a couple courses on there, and the thing that sticks in my mind is he tried to get some interest on the Shogi Harbor Discord, and didn't get much interaction from people. And one interaction he got was someone sort of Like, is there a way to test this without logging in? I just, it kind of, it almost hurts me. I don't know if it hurt him, but it hurts me that like someone puts all this effort in to start building this site, make this thing that we all would benefit from, and you won't even create a login just to test it out and help. Like, it bothered me. It bothered me, and I'm sorry if I'm throwing a shot at, I don't remember who it is. So in my mind, I feel like I can just say it. So I apologize for if the person is listening to the podcast and they hear this. I apologize, but like that kind of comment, I think really hurts developers and people who are trying to do promotion. It may sound innocuous, but it really hurts. And in the end, I think he tried to get some interest in Japan, and just people weren't interested. But we'll see. We'll see where that goes. I have high hopes for it because, like I said, I think we need that. And it's what people like you who are coming from chess and are fluent in modern day software will expect and look for. So anyway, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up. What else? So what else do you feel like coming in from these other gaming communities? Like, what else are we missing?
So this is something that you've already touched on, but growing up playing, I grew up playing chess. I started playing chess at 5 or 6 years old. One of the first presents I ever got from my parents for the holidays was a chess book, and I have I have, what is it, Shogi for beginners? Is that
Yeah,
Fairchild? Like,
fair man.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, I have that book, and to be fair, this was one of the instances in which I was like, this is what sparked that argument where I was like, even the beginner shogi books require you to learn the kanji,
Hmm.
um, which is fine. I get it. We've already had that discussion. Let's not beat a dead horse and throw it off a cliff or anything like that. But even just like the one thing that book does really well is I think it creates a decent introduction for people like me who come from chess, because it has chess notation in it. And I know that we can talk about chess notation for 4 hours,
Yeah.
where let's not bring that up either. I really enjoy the fact that they differentiate letters from numbers, because the amount of times that I have been in a shogi game and I'm like, oh, I think I should move to 7-2, and I'm like looking at the Kifu afterwards, and it's like 2-7, and I'm like, oh, I don't know the difference.
It's
Like,
I think that's a real problem. I don't know how advanced players get around that problem. I don't know if they do get around, like, just the board. It's one of those things that's just, I don't, not making like a quality call, but like it's one of those things that's just very nice about chess. You look at the board, you know what side is which. White is on the right.
yeah, white
You
is on the right is
know.
exactly. I learned that when I was 5 years old. White is on the right, queen goes on her color,
Yep,
and so A1 is going to be a black square,
yep.
and it's going to be on the bottom left hand corner, and then G8 is going to be a black square in the top right hand corner, and so with that,
And there's checkerboarded.
y-
You can tell diagonals very easily. Yeah,
yes, and with the I think the issue with shogi is that with 9 by 9 it would be the same on all four sides, because there's an odd number, so it
yeah,
would just be like a bunch of X patterns. So
yeah.
even if it was checkerboarded, it wouldn't be different. I have not seen a shogi board that was marked on the sides with like kind of an X and Y axis.
Yeah.
I was just saying, like, read this number first, read this number second. I could make that. I guess it's probably not hard to draw,
There
but
is a
like,
vinyl board which you'll see that you like if you go to events and things that you might see. There's a vinyl board that's sort of, I think it's JSA branded. It's available as part of like the JSA official like starting kit. It's Japanese, it's Roman numerals and Japanese.
yes,
Um,
I have seen that on Lee Shogi. Lee Shogi does that for, or I guess
yeah,
they, yeah, like if you, I think on yours you have it. I don't have that turned on for mine.
yeah.
I don't know which one I'm supposed to read first.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and also like if you go to a place, there's a 50% chance that it's wrong, because the
yeah,
gote and sente, is going to throw that off, and no one rotates. You throw the pieces to decide who's sente. No one rotates the board around so that the notation is correct. So
yeah.
it's rough. It's
And they
rough.
do that in chess because it'll completely change the game if you have the queens on the wrong color,
Yeah.
or if you start on the wrong side. So I I guess it doesn't change the like actual game of shogi if you don't rotate because as again there's no checkerboard. It's 9 by 9. The pieces are mirrored so they're set up on the same side and it's there's no issue of the queens being on the wrong color or the knights jumping over to the wrong side or anything like that with shogi. So I understand like the no need to turn it. It just creates a barrier for, yeah, as you say, people like me who come from a chess world and I notate,
Hmm.
e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop d4. And so with that, and it's the same in Go too, honestly. I notated a Go game for the first time this week,
Mm.
and I learned that like they have the 19 by 19 board,
Yeah.
and then any captures just need to be written down at the bottom. And
It's tough.
I I can't imagine that for Shogi, although it's pretty similar with the like placing the pieces with the asterisk next to it. That's not too dissimilar,
Yeah.
but at least it's linear
Yeah.
and you're moving in a direction in which you can see like, oh, with this asterisk you just needed to place one of these pieces on the board that wasn't beforehand,
Yeah.
whereas if you want to find a capture notating Go you have to go through an entire box of captures to try and find when that was.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's tough. That's tough.
But I
Um,
like to I guess finally answer your question, which I danced around. I'm not necessarily sure that there needs to be a huge increase of software because we have a software that does 99.9% of that already, and that's Lee Shogi. Lee
yeah.
Shogi is far and away the best resource for any Westerner who wants to get into Shogi.
Yeah.
The one caveat of Lee Shogi is that nobody plays on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, I have had friends who, like my best friend in Wisconsin, his name is Mitchell. Hi, Mitch, if you happen to end up listening to this. I sent that to him and he's like, who's playing?
Yeah.
Like there's like 4 active games, whereas you go on Lead Chess and there's hundreds. Obviously,
Sure.
chess is more popular, but even I mentioned this in a stream of yours like 2 weeks ago. I found out there was a Lead Draughts,
Yeah.
and there are dozens of people playing on that.
Yeah. There are more
And
people playing that than shogi, certainly.
yeah, absolutely. And I get that Draughts also has kind of an international pull. There's probably not many places to play that at a high level.
Yeah.
I also learned that I did not know the rules to checkers before I started playing on that website
Yeah.
because the rules of checkers that they play with are vastly
They're
different than the
different.
ones that
Yeah.
I. So, but it's really, really interesting to see not necessarily the lack of resources, but the lack of love. And I think that comes not from the Western audience. Most of the Western shogi audience knows how good Lee Shogi is.
Yeah.
They know how good the puzzles are because the puzzles are probably the best place to play puzzles at this point in time, at least for a Westerner's perspective. I don't know if there's a website in Japan that is just sume problems
Yeah.
or you know uh, counter sume problems where you have to get out of the checkmate. Um, Lee Shogi has puzzles, it has learning opportunities, it has a great resource guide, which is how I ended up like going and looking at Hidechi's shogi openings and
Mm.
how I found Killer Ducky's like website. Killer
Yeah.
Ducky, shout out again, fantastic beginner guide who but without Lee Shogi, I would have known none of that stuff. And without, hopping into your stream and getting a link to Killer Ducky's website, I still might not have been able to find that because that doesn't really pop up until after you've learned all of the beginner stuff in Lee Shogi.
Yeah.
So The problem is, and I don't know if we can fix this, how do we get people from other areas to play only shogi?
Yeah. Yeah, there are Japanese players playing there. There are Westerners. Um, I have my own hang up about, I have my own tastes on software. Despite the fact that I've said, and I believe that this is the best software that we have for shogi worldwide, period, full stop, regardless of nationality. The way the count, the Byoyomi is handled is just
Yeah.
it's too off-putting to me to play there anymore. And so I can't, because I time out too much, because it's different from every clock, every shogi clock. And I don't want to turn this into a rant session about that. But there is an issue. It's being worked on, and someone is doing some work, and hopefully that gets there soon. I think
Yeah.
it's going to be great. I don't know if that's going to make any movement for more people playing. But the only other thing that I think that I would really love to have there, I would love to have like Puzzle Rush, that
Oh
kind of
yeah,
stuff.
absolutely.
But the opening explorer, I think that is really the holy grail of what they can do and what I would like them to do, because they
Don't
have
get
that
me
data.
don't get me started on Opening Explorer. Play Shogi, which I also actually have pulled up on my computer because I was looking when I play correspondence games. I take a look at possible openings in because I again that's not something that I have a lot of experience with.
Yeah.
And in chess, I honestly I don't know if I'm admitting to cheating here, but in chess correspondence games, you're allowed to look at an opening book
Yes.
while you're
Yes.
playing. So I do the same when I'm playing shogi with my friends. I
Yeah.
don't, I only play correspondence games with my friends nowadays. But when I was playing against people on Lee Shogi, I was not looking at an opening book, playing against a stranger or anything like that, because I'm not sure the rules of like international correspondent shogi. If you
Yeah.
can use a book like you can with FIDE rated
Hmm.
correspondence games or something like that. But I look at the opening explorer. First off, play Shogi Opening Explorer can't flip sides. You always have to play from Sente. And so if you wanna study it, you have to flip your own board in order to have if you're playing Gote, Sente's moves on the correct side. There's also like 2,000 games on that Opening Explorer. There
It's
there are there are more games being played on that per month on Lee Shogi, I'm sure.
yeah.
And I know that getting a database of all those games is going to be hard. Lee Chess does it, chess.com does it,
Yeah.
and they might have more resources than Lee Shogi does. I understand that, especially being a Lee website, it's all open source and donation based rather than for profit.
Yeah.
But that is I'm glad you brought that up because that is a tool that I forgot about and that I was going to bring up because it is literally like actively on my computer screen right now. Hence the very bright white light that just
Yeah.
popped up because it's just in the top corner and the rest of it is a blank white
Nice.
page. Don't get me started with that either. Um, the
Yeah.
other thing about Play Shogi is there's only two piece sets, kanji and fully international. And I actually don't like the fully international pieces with the like decorated bishops and the drawn on pawns. We've talked about that before.
Yeah.
I think drawing pieces on a wood block does not lend itself to necessarily being as both aesthetically pleasing and functionally exhibitive for learning shogi.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. Yeah. It's unfortunate. Yeah, Play Shogi was a nice start, but
Yeah.
it's not. It's just it's not really modern software.
No, it is not.
And as terms of the opening explorer, it's they're old games. I think they're pro games. There
Yeah.
are too few of them. When I first started using it, I was a Nakabisha player, and there's just there's nothing there's nothing for what an amateur would play. And
Yeah.
so, I'd be out of play shogi on move 2 or move 3.
Yes, yes, exactly. And I find myself in a similar pace. I'm gonna go like, for instance, there are 131 first turn bishop games.
Mm,
and all of them have the same fourth move, which is silver takes 22.
Yeah.
And then there are 8 different moves, and after that, it's basically done.
Yeah.
And so like I can only learn 5 moves of this opening.
Yeah.
And in chess, where and again mentioning like the openings don't matter as much, they still matter. Like
Yeah.
every you know
Totally.
a great chess player can beat an average chess player when they play a bad opening, but it makes it harder on them.
Yeah.
And there are openings which are even when you play them against each other. There's one opening that's better when you play it against each other, and there's one opening that's worse when you play it against each other. And players like me coming over from the chess world, that's really like our first starting point when we were serious chess players, because that is, I'll say, the most significant part of my chess study
Mm.
is going over my opening prep. If I play e4 and my opponent plays, d5, what am I going to do there?
Yeah.
Or if he plays c5, am I going to
Yeah.
take? If he plays if I play e4 and he plays d5, are we going to go into the Scandinavian, or am I going to decline it? Um, there the processing of openings from players like me, I think it's just different than a lot of the higher rated shogi players in the West, who I'm sure played chess at some point in time, but maybe weren't super serious or super active chess players. Or if they were, they, and I don't want to offend anybody who thinks like this, the culture of Japan and the way they do things and the way they learn things kind of superseded the process of being able to learn things in your own way. Because
Yeah.
I know that's a really big thing in just not Japanese but East Asian culture, where my sensei learned it this way, so I have to teach it to you this way. We cannot learn it differently, even though there are other proper ways that we can go about studying this exact same thing. It's like I'm in 8th grade again, and I got the right math question correct, and Miss Sanders is hitting me over the hand with a ruler because I didn't show my work because it was different than
Yeah.
hers. And so it it's it's such a unique experience playing these games from a Western perspective, and seeing, like, chess was not invented in America. Chess was not invented in Europe.
Yeah.
But how much influence European and American society has had on the game, whereas the exact opposite has happened with shogi, where we have strong players who have become very decent shogi players, and have, we have a professional, a woman's professional who's from Poland. What has her, like, her influence on the game is massive as a Western professional. What influence has she imparted from the Western world on the game, is, I guess, where I'm getting at. And again, Shogi Harbor, that's who that is, right?
Yes.
She is the Shogi Harbor. She has had a great influence on the on people playing in the West, with the Shogi Harbor Discord, with some of the lessons that she's put out, with the games that she's going over on her YouTube channel. But she, as a Westerner, has not imparted influence on the game itself, I don't think. And I I'm not sure many have, if any,
Hmm.
had significant influence on changes as to how the game is played.
Yeah.
Maybe me forcing Shogi Wars to put dots on their pieces has had a more significant, and that's a full joke that we have joked about in your stream. It is very funny, the timing of that, how that
Yeah.
was like, I'm playing Shogi Wars, and I hate that I either have to read full kanji or see a P for
Yeah.
pawn.
Yeah.
3 weeks later, we have kanji with
Yeah.
dots added so that you can move them.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that that was in production or development well
Who
before I
knows?
I brought that up. But I just hope that, and not that the JSA is going to do anything about it either, because their focus is on Japan. I hope that there is a point in time where they take a look and they say, we can make this game more accessible to people outside of this country. Or, we can make this game more accessible to everybody. And I hope that's my main goal, is being on your podcast. Honestly, first off, great to meet you. I don't think we've actually had a,
Yeah.
a chance to
Yeah.
talk face to face before this, so great to meet you. But my my main goal is to tell these people who are on, or thinking about being on your podcast, who are 1 and 2 dan or 4 dan and have been playing shogi for decades, or over a decade at this point, and take the game really seriously. For every player like you in the West, there are a dozen of me
Yeah.
who really want to get into the game and find it very hard to, with the lack of resources and the lack of accessibility. If the one website that we're comfortable playing on is Lee Shogi, because they have 25 different piece sets for us to choose from,
Hmm.
and the option to input your own, as you have done with your own kanji sets on Lee Shogi.
Shout
If
out to
that's the
Jazz
one web
Brothers.
Yeah, yeah. If that's the one website that we have a chance to play on, and if I go to the lobby on Lee Shogi right now, there are 0 games in the
Hmm.
lobby currently. And if I go to correspondence, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rated games, and 5 casual games, and 2 variant games. If I go on there and I see 12 people want to play a game of shogi, and they're all correspondence games, I'm going to become pretty disillusioned with the way that the game is being played in the
Yep.
West.
Yeah. Oh man, a great discussion. Yeah, I hear you. I don't know how we get to the next step, but that's I think that's it in a nutshell. That's the problem that we have, that even if you are hooked, you're hooked. Whatever bait was on the line, you've been hooked by it, and you want to play shogi. You want to do more. You want to get past just that early stage, and what is there for you.
Yep.
And it's tough. You really have to want it, and you have to put up with some stuff, like you said, there's a tendency to think one way about the game, and it's the way that this person said it, and it's the way that this person's teacher said it, and I think there's a lot of regimented thinking in the shogi world. And my understanding from listening to chess podcasts, I'm not a member of chess community like you would be. It sounds like chess was like that to a certain
Yeah.
extent, and
For a
maybe
very
still
long
is in
time.
some way, but that has changed a lot. Where
Yeah.
people are seeing, with the growth of young people and online boom and engines, there are a lot of ways to learn and to improve at that game. And hopefully we get there with
Yeah.
shogi.
With you brought up a great point about chess, is that 50 years ago, not everybody could play chess.
Hmm.
My dad, by the way, that this is not super important, but my mom is Jewish and my dad is Catholic.
Hmm.
And my dad learned how to play chess in Catholic school.
Hmm.
And my mom did not grow up learning how to play chess, but her mom and her mom, they were fairly avid chess players. But the Jewish community has had a really strong link to chess for a long time, and some other, minority communities have had these, like, chess is a smart game
Yeah.
kind of thought. And I think with the advent of the internet, you know Go kind of exploded with that too, right in the early 2000s, when, like, I think it's called Tengen, or I have it right here. Let me find it. Uh, Tygem.
Hmm.
Tygem is a software that,
Oh,
yeah, yeah, that people play chess on, or that people play
go.
Go on. And once that happened, it just made people realize, like, I can learn how to play Go. I can play Go right now, like, just sitting here on my computer. Shortly after that, I think, is when the big chess boom started. After Bobby Fischer in the 70s and the 80s, and the Russians, I'm sure that brought up a lot of, like, oh my goodness, we're so good at chess. It's the space race, but chess. I get it.
Yeah.
But in the early 2000s, I think a lot of these chess forums started popping up, and that's when I, 2000, 2001. That's when I, as a 5 or 6 year old, started playing chess. And I think that's kind of the point where people were like, this game is accessible to everybody, not just smart people,
Hmm.
not just people who have really good memorization tactics. And with that growth came, first off, exponential monetary value of the
Yes.
game. There are so many players who have gotten rich from chess who would not have been able to 50 years ago. Like a lot of content creators are making content about chess because they are able to, and that's how they make their living. Even the number two player in the world, Hikaru Nakamura, makes, I would say, most of his money streaming on Twitch nowadays rather
Yeah.
than playing chess, which is a whole other topic of discussion. But with that introduction of like anybody can play chess, you can you started seeing things like at your local park, the tables have chessboards built into them. And that was a cultural shift that I think a lot of Western society started introducing. They're like, we can do this. We want to teach our kids something, and this is a fairly easy game to teach. It's accessible to everybody. The pieces are cool. By the way, with the shogi pieces, I'm the same way about chess pieces too. I don't play with the little rinky dink like of plastic chess pieces. I have a full set with a vinyl board of double weighted chess pieces that if they're not double weighted, I'm probably not going to play with them. Everybody at my chess club plays on the exact same thing
Yeah.
with a vinyl board and double weighted chess pieces. And so I think the introduction of those like standardized pieces really helped, and the introduction of just cheap manufactured well made chess pieces that are not hard to hold on to, that are the same height and the same weight and the same standard, really helped with that too. And I honestly, I don't know where I'm going with this tangent, but there has to be something that we can do here to introduce the game to people like we did to chess 50 years ago.
Yeah.
If that means that we go full like Judith Polgar and have some person raise their kid
Yeah.
learning kanji from 2 years old and becoming a shogi great, and then
Yeah.
going over to Japan and realizing like it's nurture over nature, and we could play this just as well as a lot of Japanese people can if we focus our children on playing it. I'm not sure how well the JSA would take to that, but I think there has to be something or someone that can introduce this on a wider scale to the Western audience. And there have been people that have done really well. My first experience playing shogi, I played a game against Shogi Explained. I played two games against Shogi Explained, actually, who took their time, specifically messaged me and was like, let's play two games. One is going to be a serious game. And then the second one is going to be, or like the first one's going to be a teaching game, and the second one's going to be a serious game. And we played a full teaching game where they explained, like, this is this and this is this. They recommended the check piece set with kanji to start so that I could see which way it goes. And then I won my second game of shogi
Yeah.
against them. Um,
Awesome.
I should not have to get personally reached out to by a very well respected member of the community to learn how to play this game.
Yeah. I didn't know
And
that. I had not heard that story.
yes,
Wow.
well, to be fair, I was down like 30 points of material, and Shogi Explained ran out of time. But I take my wins like I
Yeah.
take my wins, which is humble.
Yeah.
And and so I think there just has to be a better way.
Yeah.
I don't know what that better way is. If that means that again, we start teaching kids in the hot spots, New York, LA, Seattle. Shout out. I
Yeah.
will go to Seattle in November and hopefully be able to go to a
Awesome.
shogi club meetup. Um, one of those hot spots starts teaching their kids about shogi at a really young age rather than chess. I got into playing chess, and then a bunch of my friends started playing chess with me. There has to be some type of snowball effect there that
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. And hopefully this Netflix show gets more people into it and we get more of a chance of something like that happening.
Yeah.
Well, but ignoring them, what's next for your shogi?
I'm not gonna buy, what is it? Is it a Meijo certificate?
Oh,
Is that what it's
Menjo
called?
certificate. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna buy that for thank you. But
Thank
I
you.
think
Thank you.
I think I want to get to the point where I can play comfortably over the board. Um, with anybody. And that
Hmm.
includes the people that gatekeep that won't play with pieces that have markings on them. I want, honestly, I want to get to a place where I can beat them,
Yeah.
because I want to show them you can learn shogi in a way that is non-traditional, that is helpful for beginners that are maybe intimidated by kanji pieces, that are intimidated by the amount of, or the lack of the amount of
Yeah.
resources that you have. And you don't need to know Japanese to play shogi. You don't need to have a degree in East Asian culture in order to understand why the game is so great.
Yeah.
And you don't need to you don't need to be a shogi like weeb
Mm.
to really learn the game and not only learn it but respect it. I think with my questions on international piece sets and dots on pieces and in, involved resources for players like me who are coming over from chess, um, I I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and I think I am just as valid learning my shogi that way as they were learning shogi the hard way. I think that's
1,000%.
another big part of it, where these old heads, the elder statesmen, learn the hard way, and now that there are more resources that could become available, they're like, I didn't have those. Why should you get them?
Mhm.
And I think that's just a detriment to society in general to be like, I didn't have these opportunities. Why should the people behind me have these opportunities to learn? Because we as a society, and we as a community, a shogi community, should grow and harbor shogi
Yeah.
in terms of the learning. And if that means that these elder statesmen are going to, I'm trying to think of like, what can they do about it in the first place? If I get good enough to beat them, what are they going to do? Refuse to play me?
Yeah.
Cool, I win. Like, that's my opportunity. I don't want to sound like cocky or anything like that. There's a like a 2% chance that I become good enough at shogi that I can beat, the 4 or 5 non-American players that we have that are playing out of, I think Louisiana has a really strong one, and
Mm.
some players in Seattle and New York and LA. I'm not going to be able to go there anytime within like the next 5 years and hold my own against them, especially not with kanji pieces. I'm young, man. I just turned 30. I still got most of my brains in
As far
here.
as I'm concerned, you're a young kid.
I still got I still got years of my prime brain power ahead of me.
Yeah.
So if that means that I need to find a way to memorize openings, or I need to find a way to memorize these sume problems, or I need to find a way to memorize which side of the board is the right side of the board to
Yeah.
notate on, I'll get there. And I hope that when I do reach to the level of those players, if I reach the level of those players, I'm welcomed rather than turned away, and that they can see there are other valid ways of learning this game rather than just 100 losses to start.
Yeah.
That was what turned me away from Go,
Go. Yeah.
when I kept losing, and I'm like, what do I do to get better? And they're like, keep losing, and I'm like, after 45 losses, that's not the right advice to give to somebody. And again, I'm lucky that I won my second shogi game, because my next like 6 or 7 were all losses,
Yeah. It's tough.
and it's going to be like that. But I think encouraging other means of learning is really, really important in growing a community. There has to be other methods rather than join this really niche Discord that I found on this really niche subreddit,
Mhm.
or that I found watching this really niche Twitch streamer
Yeah.
that like that, you know, if I want to look up shogi, if I look up shogi right now, if I just go here and I type shogi, Lee Shogi is the second website to pop up. Where else am I going to learn about it if
Yeah.
I'm a Westerner and I'm not typing? There's Reddit. There's a post on Reddit that says, "Has anybody here tried shogi?" And it's on the chess subreddit.
Mm.
So there, and I don't want to get into that either because there are valid points that they make, and most of them are, I'm intimidated by the lack of resources and the amount of kanji.
Yeah.
And there are ways to counteract that. I counteracted it. Have I fully counteracted it at this point? No. But there are ways to get people introduced to the game that don't just include, here's play shogi, change the international pieces until you learn the kanji.
Mm.
Go learn the kanji before you start playing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Oh boy. Well, we are way over an hour at this point. Um, I'm like a broken record saying that I feel like we can keep talking more, and so maybe we'll just have to talk again in the future. But this has been a pleasure for me. If people want to reach you and talk about this stuff, these things that you've said, you may not hear them in the Discord, but having my semi unique position as being this very niche streamer, people do message me on the side. People do talk to me like at some of these clubs. Like they'll say something that they might not feel comfortable saying on Shogi Harbor, for example. And so rest assured, you're not alone. If someone is listening to this, nodding their head, you are also not alone. There are, not like this is a terrible, like I think the shogi community is incredible. I love it. I love being part of it. And people are really nice and they want to learn and they want to get better. But there are a number of people with these little chips on their shoulder. And you are not the first or the second. Last week's episode slightly got into this as well. There's some people out there with some chips on their shoulder being like, I'm going to beat these guys. These people who have sort of, been not nasty to me, but nasty to me. Like I'm going to beat them. When I grow up, I'm going to beat them. And so, it's great that people are trying to get better. It's great that they're finding a way to get in. I hope we can make it so that it's a little easier. But anyway, so where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me currently on the Shogi Harbor Discord. Discord name Zion Cannon,
Okay.
Tzion, Cannon spelled like cannon.
Mm.
The artillery weapon, not the lore. Um, Most of the time, though, if you want to reach me, you can just message me on Shogi Dad Stream because I'm
Yeah.
there basically every day. It's part of my
Confirmed.
work routine now. As soon as you log in, I just kind of put you in the background and start my work.
Nice.
I enjoy hearing you play games. I enjoy hearing you curse at yourself whenever you have 1 second Byoyomi left and you make a wrong move and you're like, I'm so stupid. Why did I do that?
I,
Because I do that to me. I do that to myself all the time.
uh,
Especially when I was playing that 3 minute game today. I was looking at it and I'm like, there are so many instances that I wanted to just take my mouse and throw it through my computer screen. Because when I play a wrong move or anything like that. But yeah, Discord and then Twitch, and
then
then you can find me on Lee
the
Shogi
shogi.
at
Yeah, I'll add the
TM.
link. I'll add
Yeah,
I'll add the
TM
link in the
Wyatt
show
Shogi,
notes.
which is my full name, TM Wyatt. And if you find your way to somewhere near northern Indiana, I'm 3 hours away from Indianapolis, Chicago, Detroit, Cleveland, and Columbus. So if you find your way to any of those, let me know, and I would love to get together with any of you for a game.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Like from the bottom of my heart, thank you. It's been great. I will talk to you on the stream. Thank you everyone for listening. Please remember to like and subscribe. And have a great remainder of the day. Enjoy your shogi. Thanks a lot. Bye.